Tampa Bay owner, Stu Steinberg, who is a lifelong Met fan and had been many times thought of as a prospective buyer of the Mets. We'll talk a little bit about that and the whole thing with what's going on with Tampa and everything else on this day. Well, we've gotten some clarity on a couple of issues. Obviously, we know as we've known for 2 days the deal with Steve Cohen was dead. We just didn't, and we still don't know exactly why both sides are putting out their own spin. But who cares? I mean, really, do you care? Do you care whether it was that they changed the deal or something changed in the deal or the price changed? They had a weird deal. The man owned 8% of the team. He was going to 80% of the team. They had a fixed price. It also included the Wilpons staying in positions of power for years to come. It was a very, very tough plan to pull off. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You buy something, you take ownership. That's the way it should be. Now, with him out of the way, he still owns 8% of the team, remember. But with Steve Cohen out of the way, now the Mets will go through a formal sale process. Could take a year. Who knows? There will be people who will want it, but I'm sure all plans will be with the Mets just turning ownership over to that new group whenever that happens. I'm sure that will be the case. That's the way it should be anyway. The idea of having minority owners stay and run the team after they already give away ownership, I think is ridiculous. So it never made any sense to me. So the fact that it didn't work doesn't surprise anybody. It really doesn't. There were too many moving parts there and too much to overcome. So that's dead. I understand that for most Met fans, most Met fans, they can't stand the Wilpons owners, so they want new ownership. They're willing to get anybody in there. They especially want a guy in there who's got very deep pockets, which Steve Cohen definitely did. The idea that Steve Cohen had a vision to win a World Series within the next number of years, what guy doesn't take over a team and have a vision of winning the World Series? What do you think their vision is? Every guy who buys a team, his vision is to win the World Series or to win the Super Bowl or to win the NBA championship. I mean, obviously. Otherwise, he wouldn't be buying the team. He didn't buy the team to lose. He bought the team to appreciate. He didn't buy the team to lose. So we know that going in. We also know that we're just waiting for the formal announcement whenever it comes that Leon Rose is taking over the Knicks. That could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We'll have to wait and see. It'll be about players. I told you yesterday there would be no way John Calipari, despite his relationship with Leon Rose, despite his relationship with World Wide West, John Calipari was not going to be coming to coach the Knicks. I told you that yesterday. 2 reasons why. Number one, he shouldn't be coaching the Knicks. He's better off coaching college. Number 2, his wife loves Lexington. She's a small-town girl, and she doesn't like the big city. They have more money they can spend in their lifetime. They have more money they can spend in 2 lifetimes. He makes $9 million a year at Kentucky. That's just his base salary. He gets money on other deals that he's got wheeling and dealing going all the time. He's always been a wheeler dealer. He made money all the way back to the Nets, where he made a bunch of money then. So he's got plenty of money, more than he can spend in Lexington or anywhere else. And that's the perfect place for him to coach. He's a college coach. He's not made to be a pro coach. He's got a system that works, a way of doing things that works, and he's been highly successful, and he can stay at Kentucky for as long as he wants. So there's no reason for him to be the worst move he ever made. I never even thought it was possible, and he threw cold water on it, which I thought he would. He said he'd help in any way, but he's not coaching, and he shouldn't even be considered a candidate, and he won't be. He's a college coach. Pure and simple. That's what he is. He's a good college coach. He's a good program guy. He's a excellent program builder because he's a great recruiter. And he's very good at getting kids to play together, and he's very good at getting kids who are not used to be told things to play hard. And that's his greatest gift. Calipari's greatest gift is he can get kids who are spoiled and have been stars to play together and play hard. And that is not an easy thing to do, and he does it about as well as anybody, anywhere, at any time. He is great at that. They'll play defense. They'll share the ball. I mean, you go look at the guys he's had who have blossomed in the NBA who did nothing in college except play roles. Now you want to say he should have won more in college? Yeah, he should have won another championship, but you know what? You got to make your free throws. And you can't go into a Final Four game and clang, 3 for 92 from three-point range, which they did that day. So it happens. You're going to lose with some talented teams in the Final Four. In that setup, it's just the way it's set up. He's got 1 championship. He could easily have 3. Should have won one with Memphis. That was a joke. That was an absolute joke. But the bottom line is he's going to be always in a position to win. He gets great players. He's got a system. He takes care of his players when they leave there. They have basically a conveyor belt, and it's set up very, very well. You know, it's funny. I've listened, and I hear all this stuff, and this isn't really about the people who might be on the shows. It's more about guests. But I hear these people from out of town or people who are considered to be, you know, basketball national people and everything tell you what has to be done for someone to be successful in our town. None of them have a clue. You don't have to do any certain thing to be successful in New York. You don't have to cultivate the fan base. You don't have to placate the media. You don't have to play up to anybody. You don't have to be transparent. You don't have to be nice. You don't have to do anything except put a good product on the court, on the field, on the ice, and win. Nobody was less transparent than Pat Riley. Nobody. Nobody gave out less information or was in any way fan-friendly. Nobody was less that way than Bill Parcells. Nobody. Could he handle the media in a press conference? Yes. But did he give out anything? No. Did he care what you thought? Not in the least. He didn't placate anybody. He went out and won. All you have to do in this town is win. You don't have to do anything else. The idea that you have to have this set of ground rules, well, you have to cultivate the fan base. You need them to be patient. Oh, really? Madison Square Garden is unique. It is different than any building in the world. The Garden is a thriving business everywhere except the one-loss column. See, the difference between the Wilpons and Dolan is the Wilpons have had some success on the field. They are a mess financially. The Knicks have had no success on the court or in the standings, but they are a raging success financially. You ever look at the Madison Square Garden stock? 2 years ago it was 100. Now it's 300. And he sits on some of the most valuable real estate in the world. And he made a fortune selling off his cable empire. The guy knows what he's doing financially. He just doesn't know how to pick people to run his franchise. They're a good business. They're a good business to invest in. If you've invested in MSG stock the last couple of years, you've got a big smile on your face. Stock has appreciated enormously. Went over 300 today before it fell back late. It was over $300 a share. His franchises are worth billions. He's not selling them. They are great assets. He hasn't figured out how to put the right people in place to win. That's what it's about. All right. Does it bother him when the fans yell stuff in the building? It does, yeah, because he's thin-skinned. Are you going to affect his business? No. Does he care what you think? Not in the least. But you're the customer. He doesn't want you to come in the building and yell at him. He wants to win. So does everybody else. He just hasn't figured out how to do it. He doesn't know the right person from the wrong person. And the climate around there and the culture around there that has led them to recruit players has become such a negative that they have not been able to recruit people to Madison Square Garden, which is something none of us thought was humanly possible 10 years ago, that no one could recruit players to Madison Square Garden. Players don't want to play there. So if you're the Mets, they're looking for an owner. They haven't been told, or they were not told by baseball to sell the franchise. That's not true. There's a lot of stuff that's not true. Do the owners want to cash in? They do, yes. They think it's time to cash in. So they're going to cash in. Will it probably end up the way this was going to end up? They tried to do it one way because they had a guy who was an incredibly wealthy guy who wanted the team, who already owned 8%, who was going to be an easy guy to get vetted, and that way they could do things in increments. Now it won't happen that way. Now it'll probably be someone who just buys the whole franchise. And that's the way it should be. That makes plenty of sense. Will it impact the team this year? No, it probably won't even come up this year. It'll take them probably a year to get this done. You probably won't even hear anything about prospective owners for 2 or 3 months, maybe even longer. Might hear some rumors, but doesn't mean they're real. Now, as far as what it means for the Knicks, hey, there is more than one way to build a franchise in the NBA. So to say that the way is patently wrong going in doesn't have to be. The question is, can you procure talent? That's all it's about. It's not about anything else. You want to talk about developing teams? Okay, you need certain people to develop skills and develop players. But to bring players in or to find players is not a difficult task. And sometimes the ball has to bounce the right way for you in the NBA. It just does. Or, LeBron James is lucky enough, you're lucky enough that he comes to your town and changes the plight of your franchise overnight, which he has done a couple of times in his life. As I said, we'll talk to a guy who's been as successful, and if the Mets could ever get this guy as their owner, they'd be halfway home. They'd be 3/4 of the way home. We'll talk to Stu Steinberg of the Tampa Bay Rays in just a minute. But first, the thing on Pebble. Nick Taylor leads. He's 14 under par to Canadian. He's tearing it up. He followed up a 63 with a 66. So he has a halfway home lead. Phil Mickelson, who always plays great there, is on fire, and he's 12 under par. Jason Day's 11 under par. Johnson, DJ, is 10 under par. Cantlay, who I picked, because there were only 2 top 10 players, so I took the one that was the long odds, which was Cantlay. Cantlay and DJ were the only 2. Cantlay is 9 under, so he's not having a great day today. He's only 2 under for the day, 3 under for the day, which is not good enough. But things will get tougher on Saturday. But right now, Johnson's there, Cantlay's there, Day's there, Phil's there. Do I think Phil will win? No, but he's having one of those incredible Phil rounds today, and he's 12 under par. Well, Taylor's already in at 63-66 for a 14 under par. So you got some golf to watch over the weekend, and you got a decorated leaderboard. You got DJ, and you got Cantlay, and you got Day, and you have Phil Mickelson. So on a chilly weekend, you turn it on tomorrow at Pebble, and who will be on the leaderboard? Lefty. Maybe he'll give you a thrill over the weekend. Who knows? I doubt it, but hey, you never know. He loves to play there. He's been in the top 5 there, twice in the last 3 years. You know that. He's always capable of winning there. He loves those courses. Absolutely loves them. And Day's now playing well, too. And like I said, Cantlay's not having a great day today, but he's a threat. He's still 9 under par. And DJ's 10 under par. So they're all right there as we head to the weekend. And everybody's making birds, and everyone's making eagles, and they're tearing the place up. So you got that for the weekend also. So Lefty putting on a little bit of a show. Got this guy Higgs on the 9 under par. I don't even know who Higgs is, but he's 9 under par right now, so he's playing well. So as I said, a lot to do. Hit the fan at 6 o'clock. A lot going on as we head into Oscar weekend. The Oscar just doesn't have any buzz. They're not having a host again this year. They've moved it up. It used to be the last Sunday in February. Now it's this week. I'm more excited about Homeland coming back for its last year. I'm a big Homeland guy. Waited a long time for this. Yes, the show is not great anymore. Yes, they ran out of things to write about. Yes, their scripts got crazy the last couple of years. I agree. But you know what? Claire Danes as Carrie Matheson is one of the great characters in the history of television. One of those compelling, can't take your eyes off the character people that you've ever seen. Like a Gandolfini, same thing. She's just unbelievable in that role. Unbelievable. And I can watch her in that role all day and night. So I love Homeland. That's Sunday night. Oscars Sunday night. I never miss the Oscars, but we don't even have a host. So the Oscars has kind of gone straight downhill. And, it's too political. And even when they keep the political out, it's boring. And they can't even find a host. It just doesn't work like the old days where it was Bob Hope or Johnny Carson or even Billy Crystal. All did a good job. But again, used to be a big deal when it was the Oscar, red carpet, the whole deal. Man, no one seems to care. All right, quick break. We'll come back with the owner of the Rays and get his take on everything. The owner of the Tampa Bay Rays, Stu Steinberg. Stu, welcome. How are you?
Michael, I'm well. It's great to hear you.
My pleasure. First, what was your thought when you heard this whole Met thing broke up?
Yeah, look, coming from Wall Street, things aren't done until there's, as we know, whether you're Wall Street or not, things aren't done until you're done. So, anytime I hear news of something, until I see it completed, I never fully buy it. And also when, where there's a lot of money involved, people do a lot more diligence and do a lot more, concern on both sides. So it's not shocking to me, but, you've got parties on both sides who, I know and respect, and I'm sure they each had their reasons.
Do you, did ownership, did Major League other owners get involved in this Met process yet at all? Had anything been brought to you guys or not yet?
No, there was there was nothing. I wouldn't say we were kept abreast of anything at all. This was dealings, between, the Mets owners and, whoever they're dealing with, and baseball. And at least I hadn't been involved. Nobody I knew was involved in this. I'm sure the commissioner's office was past that now.
All right, we are hearing now that the deal's dead, which we know, and I don't care who did what because that doesn't matter. That goes away, and that the Mets now will go through the formal process of putting the team up for sale. You have always been, now you are the Tampa Bay Ray owner, which I understand, but you have always been a guy who has been considered a candidate if the Mets ever were to be for sale. You do own another franchise. I know that puts it in a ticklish situation, but what does it mean if the Mets are going to be put up for sale? Does that impact you in any way?
It doesn't, on a personal level or professionally. I'm in the midst of a lot of initiatives down here. We've had a lot of success down here. A number of years ago, especially after the '08 issues in '09, when a lot of people, investors and others around the country felt a bunch of pain. I know the Mets went through some restructuring a little bit, with some limited partners that came in and what.
Right.
And, I had, people had asked me then, is this something or what? I had amazing respect and still do with the Wilpons. I could tell you, personally, everything I know about them and have been fortunate enough to know them for years. They care deeply about the game of baseball, and they have, they care deeply about the success of that team. And, I haven't seen anything happen with them, putting any process in sale, anything in place to be sold. The sale to Steve Cohen was done. I hadn't heard about it, and I don't think anybody had, until it got sort of leaked or announced. And, we'll wait to see. But, I would tell you right now, we've got a lot of great initiatives here right now, and this has, really been my focus and what I'm looking to do. But, yeah, having a New York team and being there in New York would be, it's pretty amazing. But I would tell you it's pretty amazing having a baseball team here in Florida.
Well, it sure is, and you've done one of the great jobs in baseball history. Thanks. With limited resources. Now, where are you? Let's talk about you guys for a minute. All these initiatives, including the two cities this year. Tell me where you are with everything.
Yeah, look, it's been called crazy. It's been called out of the box and other things like that. It's one of these things that I've lived with it now long enough, and I had even, 8-10 months ago, that it just makes all the sense in the world. I just came from owners meetings the last couple of days, and I've had, to a man, all the team, many team presidents and owners, tell us how, telling me how excited, they were for us to try to get this done. Look, baseball has 81 home games, and it's, it's no secret that, even with the best product out there and even with the most rabid fans, it's tough to sell games in some crummy weather sometime in April or, hot days in August, in even the best of markets. So we're still going forward with it. The Montreal folks are doing their thing there. It's going to be a little more challenging down here. We're going to need some cooperation, and the local people here, both in seeing the way through it. But I would say we're blocking and tackling to try to convince people and tell our story. Every time I'm down here now, every day and night. And once we tell business people get it. Like in a very short period of time. Fans, to their credit, I would say, don't. Fans don't want to lose their baseball team. They don't want to give up, 40 home games, let's say. I know as a New Yorker, could you imagine, right?
No.
But having heard all the horror stories, even though I was too young, but it was certainly in everybody's front of mind to have. I can't even imagine two baseball teams leaving the city, in '58. It's almost unfathomable right now. Yet, my dad and many others and uncles and you
Sure.
might remember.
Well, you live. No, I don't. I don't. I wasn't old enough
Yeah,
for
you're
that.
too young.
I
Yeah.
was too. And you're a Brooklyn guy. I was a Long Island guy. But I'm sure. I mean, Brooklyn didn't get over it forever. I mean, there's no
Forever.
question. I mean, the pain was lifetime for those people. They never got over it. A lot of them. So I couldn't imagine that. I would have loved to have been on the air when that happened. As a matter of fact, that would have been crazy. But the bottom line is, I mean, I can't even fathom those teams being ripped out of New York like that.
Two at once, right? It's
Yep.
bad enough even one. And we remember you think back, what George Steinberg was doing in the '80s. I'm going to move to Jersey,
Yep.
or even both the Jets and Giants. I remember going to Giant games, football Giants in Yankee Stadium, and certainly tons of Jet games in Shea Stadium. And it's even though they're there, it's just not the same, as a New Yorker to have them playing over the GW Bridge.
No question about it. But how has the reaction been in Montreal?
It's been good. It's been good. We've got there's some folks up there. It's a very high powered group, and the thing that I found up there that I've been, I would say, not just optimistic but overly surprised about. Way exceed expectations is the civic pride they have in that city and in their province and in their country. It is really a civic approach that they're taking. They take so much joy and love. You're talking about multi-generation people up there, people who it's a bit more socialist than it is down here. It's certainly not like some of the European countries. And they take more of a group approach to everything. And again, they lost the baseball team, right? The Expos, even though they were there for 40, almost 35 years or so, they made an indelible mark up there. And fortunately, 2 generations, 3 generations haven't passed yet. It's still front of mind to them. So they know a lot, and there are enough people up there who know what it was like when they had baseball, and they do want it back.
We're talking with Stu Steinberg, the owner of the Rays, for a long time. He's done an amazing job with a lot of limited and a lot of challenging situations down there, especially down in Florida. Are you settled into where you are content with what's going on in the Florida end of this right now, or is there something new you'd like to get done there too?
I have to be. There's really no, it's been, I'd say the last 7-8 years, the realization is that it is what it is down here. We're going to have to make the best of it. I don't look at we've got a stadium that holds 35,000 and we have 8,000 show up per game. I don't think of the 27,000 that didn't show up. I think of the 8,000 that are here.
Right.
And, while it doesn't pay the bills and it doesn't get the job done, it doesn't give us the opportunity to be our best on the field. We've had enough success that, that's what I revel in. And look, there's a little bit of fun, I will tell you, of playing the underdog and, knocking off some of the better teams, even if it's every few years and not consistently. And I think it makes us a better organization, more resourceful. But having said that, if I had another $30 or $50 million to spend, I think we'd be a hell of a better team. Will
you transmit radio and television into both towns on a full-time basis?
Yes, that's the plan.
That could be a big positive.
It's a huge look. That is the thing that changes the equation for us, or at least gets us to a point that makes us realistic. Because especially the broadcast side, the television side of it, it's both French and English up there.
Right.
That will absorb the cost that will be involved. It really, the way we've sketched this thing out, the money that we receive up there for TV and radio, should cover the cost and then a bit more. Nothing dramatic, because you can imagine we're going to have to run 2 stadiums. You have to have, 2 sales teams. You have to have housing for both. We're going to have to do, a bunch of things for the players.
Yeah, what are your players going to do on the road in Montreal? Will they live in hotels?
We haven't gotten to the point yet, but it's interesting the way we've thought this through. Bear with me and try to take this in, right? Right now, if you're a guy who plays in, pick a team, right? The Cardinals, let's say, not to pick on anybody.
All right.
And they train on the East Coast of Florida. almost to a man, every one of those guys lives somewhere around the country. Not many live in St. Louis. So
Right.
let's say a guy lives in Texas, California. They come down to spring training, so they're uprooting their family if they have one, or if they don't, their wife or their girlfriends,
Right.
whatever. They come in the middle of February. They move to Florida for a month and a half. After they left the middle of the winter. They've come to Florida. After they leave Florida, they go back. They're living in St. Louis. Maybe they actually have a home in another place, and they're in St. Louis for the months of April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months.
Right.
And then they go back to Arizona,
Right.
Texas, but wherever it happens to be. What we're thinking about here with our players is that, first of all, a bunch of them do live here. We have a greater proportion of players that live here, half a dozen or 10 or so, and most teams do. But what would happen, let's say, again, that same player from Texas or Arizona, they come down here for spring training, and we have spring training, let's say it was in Tampa Bay. We have spring training in Tampa Bay or very nearby. So they make one move. They stay here from the middle of February up through June, and then they go up to Montreal. So they're here for that period of time instead of having to do a spring training trip, and that's pretty valuable for the players.
Right.
They go up to Montreal for 3 months during the summertime. The kids are out of school at that point in time, so it shouldn't be a schooling issue.
Right.
And then they go back to their homes in Arizona, and wherever it happens.
So they can find homes,
and
they can find homes in Canada for 6 or 8 weeks at a time.
Yeah, I say, look, that's going to be on us
to
be. That's why I say some of the expense involved.
Gotcha.
It's personally, I think it's unfair.
Right.
Because of that, we're going to have to go, do our thing, to provide some housing or find housing,
Gotcha.
subsidize housing, however you want to do it.
Except for your stars, obviously. Except for your stars, yeah.
Yeah, I'll get to the second part. But the truth is, players go on the road now, and we provide. When they go on the road, we provide hotels for them, and we provide meal money for them.
Yep.
So you can sort of make this road, but actually home. And I think our play in this is to say, look, we've got a team here that's running a $60-something million payroll. There's no question if we're able to pull this off and get it done. The average player in our team goes from making $2.5 million to $3.5 or $4 million, and that cures a lot of ills.
How about we're talking with Stu Steinberg, and this year, of course, they're going to play in 2 sites, which is a tremendously interesting thing as we're discussing right now. How expensive is it to operate 2 stadiums? I mean, that's something very different. To keep that stadium game ready, is that a big expense?
Yeah, that's part of it where I say the broadcast money that we pick up there will allow us to do it. Running a stadium is expensive. An indoor stadium has its challenges, outdoor has its, but we anticipate both of the places. If we could get them done here in Florida and up there, to be programmed with more than just 40 baseball games. Down here we've got a soccer team that we would put in there. Up in Montreal, there's a screaming desire to have a great outdoor space. There are soccer teams up there. The Alouettes are up there. It all remains to be seen, but we think we can program the building up there for much of the year. Remember, middle of winter is kind of tough, but they do play some football there too. Interesting.
We're talking with Stu Steinberg. Now tell me what you think as you see how things have shifted. The Yankees get cold. The Red Sox break down. Tell me what you think as you look at the division.
It's always with us. Usually it's bad news, bad news. This is a good news, bad news. The Yankees are a powerhouse, as we all saw last year with their injuries and everything else. And they still, went through like a hot knife through butter. But you never know year to year. Had we played them even last year, they did pretty well against us last year. And if we played them even, we might have had it would have been a race, towards the end. But that being said, you can always say that. The Red Sox, interestingly enough, the year before, they win the World Series. They basically bring the team back intact, almost to a man, and they win 20 some odd less games. So. You never know year to year what happens. They still have the core of a team, even though you're taking away potentially, the deal hasn't been done yet, Price and Betts, who were no doubt significant players, still a team the year before that won 106 games. So, we look at them, we still think they're a 90-win team. And, we're not talking about the Orioles here. We're not talking about the Royals, something like that. It's still in a division where I would expect that team is going to get to, 90 wins and maybe, they fall short again, or, what happens to us happens, what happened to them, where, we fall 20 games back from what we did the year before.
How many games?
The beauty of it is that we play the games, right?
How many games did you beat the Orioles last year? Did you go on them?
Not as well as the Yankees. I think we won 12, but I could be mistaken.
Gotcha. Okay.
I could be mistaken. Yeah. There was some of that going on last year with the Astros. Beat the heck out of the Mariners. The Indians beat the heck out of one of the Central teams. 17 and 18-1 kind of thing. It's crazy.
Well, you had some really bad teams last year. That was the thing. You had some.
Yes.
It really did. I mean, historically bad teams. We're talking with Stu Steinberg.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on? Did you feel that the penalties and the way the sign stealing was handled? Were you fine with that? What was your thoughts on that? I didn't see you opine on any of this stuff.
Yeah, well, look, it really, not knowing all the facts, it's always difficult. In the fullness of time now, I've gotten, as much as I could know about it, and I think the commissioner, given everything, it's a thankless task at that point. But I think he did what was necessary, which is protect the interest of the game. I think clearly the Astros are in a worse off place, this coming year than they might have been, had the commissioner not done what he did. However, it got there, with guys losing their positions and everything else. So at the end of the day, I think things landed where they needed to land. And I think, and I told the commissioner and others, he just, the amount of work and effort they put in to try to, get the truth, which is, never a guaranteed thing. Again, he just, I think he threaded the needle on it. And look, could it have been worse? Could have been a little better? No question, but it was the best of a bad situation.
You see and you're a Wall Street guy. I mean, that's your background. You're seeing these guys get more into sports, more and more. You got Tepper, obviously, in Carolina. Stevie Cohen said he was greatly disappointed that he didn't get this franchise. He wanted it. More and more you see the franchises being attractive to the Wall Street types who have made their billions on Wall Street. Do you see that trend continuing?
Say the Wall Street guys?
Yeah, do you see Wall Street guys jumping in and buying franchises more and more now since we've seen it a couple of times here in recent years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I asked a couple of the guys you just mentioned and a few others who've been sniffing around the same question. I said, what are you seeing? Because there were sports franchises 10 years ago. They were around 20 years ago. We bought in 04.
Yep.
And guys have come and gone and bought franchises, and it just seems all of a sudden, and none of them really have, they all think it's a good asset class. They think that even though, kids are, a little more interested in gaming and the internet and everything else, that it still provides a, piece of entertainment and excitement that, and the ability for, large groups to get together that just is unparalleled anywhere else. And I think with a number of these guys, they love their college teams, and you can't buy a college team, right?
Right.
And they just, they just like everything that sports does and lifting it that goes around. And look, at the end of the day, you're talking about some of these guys that you named and others that have unimaginable kind of wealth. And, that if they can, like anything else, or like a lot of things, if you can afford it, you do it. So, I would tell you, when I got involved with it, I was just incredibly fortunate to be able to be in a position to, can you imagine? I never would have dreamed, to own and be able to run a baseball team. And I was fortunate enough, back then to do it. I would tell you, if it were today and the prices today, it would be well outside of my price range.
Listen, there were all these rumors in 11 and stuff when the Mets had their difficulties and where that stuff started that you were, swarming around the Mets. Was there any truth to any of that?
No, there wasn't. Mainly because, the Wilpons, I had too much respect for the Wilpons at the time. And, if they had approached me or something like that, I would have, but I was not going to, offensively, try to just step into something that didn't exist. The one thing I knew at the time is that they had no desires to do anything but stay in the game of baseball. And, these, especially, Fred is just an amazing guy and everything he's done with the game. So, I hadn't even considered it. People had mentioned it to me, but I hadn't considered it. And but if the phone call came and they said, I would have thought about it. But because it didn't, I didn't really think about it.
Do you think gambling is going to have a big impact on baseball revenues, or not as big as people think?
I think the answer is in between. I think it's going to have a big impact, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be as large as people think, because if I'm judging what people are suggesting, because it is all over the place. I think it's going to be a significant amount. I think baseball lends itself to that because the way it's played, pitch by pitch, out by out, as opposed to the other sports, which, don't really lend itself to successes and failures on a batter-by-batter basis and an inning-by-inning basis. They're quarters, they're halves. We hear you got out-by-out, inning-by-inning. So, and also a little bit more downtime between the pitches and downtime between the innings. So I think it lends itself to, and I think as long as it's done by people on a, friendly sort of, keep them interested kind of basis. When you have the football pools, right?
Sure.
Like anybody could get involved with a football pool and sort of follow it. The problem is when people are betting, 8 games a week and are betting a ton of money. So, you don't want it to turn into that. But I think baseball, if you're having people come to the park or watching the game and they end up wagering, $2 to $8 or $12 a game, or some a little bit more, I think it's perfectly enjoyable.
Just to give you an idea, could you imagine? We're talking with Stu Steinberg. Could you imagine if they ran a national pool on that 100-box thing that they do for the Super Bowl that everyone is involved in everywhere, or those 100-box things with the 10 scores and the 10, 100 squares.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a national one of those on Super Sunday? How much money would be involved and how much would be posted? I'll give you an example just for this. I was at the game Sunday with no promotion. And with people just walking around at the stadium, inside the stadium, they ran a 50-50 thing online that half the money went to the players, the injured players, the Players Association.
That's great.
They had 800,000 in the pool. Just 800. It was a 50-50 pool. 800,000 just with no promotion that day. Can you imagine what a national one of those things would do for a Super Bowl? My God, it could be. It's insane how much money would be in that thing. And like you said, it's fun. Everyone could get in with $1, and it's like a lottery almost. I mean,
that's a big thing. And it's funny. I was talking to a guy today. They'd raised a bunch of money for some local charities and stuff. If there's a huge charitable component to it, I'm all for it. I really am. And it's true when you get people a little bit interested. Could you imagine, how many boxes there are? There's a local pork store near Fiamma Pork Store, right? And I go in and they had a little, when you go, you put a few bucks in a box and you see how it comes out, and you go in these other boxes. But I can imagine there's got to be, I don't know, tens of millions, 100 million. God knows has been bet on, just on that, on the boxes for those games.
Billions.
The nice thing is it keeps people who wouldn't be interested in the game a little bit interested in it, and it doesn't break the bank by any. It shouldn't, at least by any stretch. But yeah, national one on that, where a bunch goes to charity, especially these former players in a number of these sports, among them the NFL. These guys who've had debilitating injuries. I think it would be a blessing for it to do it.
Well, listen, good luck as you get ready to start spring training. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Mike, thanks for reaching out. And
my
good
pleasure.
Luck with everything.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Yep.
Stu Steinberg, the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays. And again, a guy who, grew up a Met fan. There were always those rumors about him, but as you said, he's now trying to do something that had not been done before. Play his franchise half in Montreal, half in Tampa. So they're going to do that this year, and we'll see how it does. The one advantage, as we talked about, he's going to have TV and radio to both cities, 162 games. That'll help. He's got to run 2 stadiums, though. He's got to have expenses of players who are going to spend some time in Canada in the summer. So, but that's what they are planning as far as that goes. A couple other things, as we mentioned with that. Allen and Company, which handles a lot of these franchise stuff. And you got to remember, the guy who will handle it is very close to the Wilpons, exceedingly close. So that is not an unusual thing that they would handle this. It's not an unusual thing that he would handle this. That is exactly how this would be done. What I would expect to happen, though, is I would expect this idea of them holding part of the franchise, I would expect that to go away, because I think baseball will even say, listen, that lends itself to way too much complication. If you want to put the team up for sale, put it up for sale in a regular way and let somebody come in and buy it. And if it takes 12 to 18 months to get it sold, so be it. You'll be in charge until then. Clearly, the Mets still want to sell the franchise. Despite reports to the contrary, they have not been told to sell the franchise. That is not true. And people who do these quote unquote deep dives into the Wilpons' finances, take those with a grain of salt for this reason. The Wilpons do not have anything that is a public business. They are not they do not have any public companies. They are not companies like Madison Square Garden is a public corporation. Everything they have to do, they have a board of trustees. Everything they have to do, they have to answer to Wall Street. They have to answer to the SEC. The Wilpons own private businesses. They do not own any public businesses. Sterling Equities is not a public business. Anything they own is not public. Baseball ownership, things that are between baseball and ownership, are not made public. So the idea that you're going to do a deep dive into somebody's private business is very difficult to do because you just can't find everything. You don't have any way to get to it. They don't have to show that kind of transparency because they are not a public entity. They are a private business. So it changes things dramatically from that standpoint. If you want to know how much money Dolan's got, you're going to know it. If you want to figure out how much money the Wilpons have, you got to realize how much is in this pocket, how much is in this company, how much is under Sal Katz's name, how much is under Fred's name, how much is in real estate, how much is their investment in this industry, in this real estate project, in this deal. So you got to, in this building in New York City, in this New York City residence, in this complex. So it's a very, very hard thing to do because they are private citizens. They do not have a public business. They only run private businesses. So it makes it a very hard thing to ascertain. Really is. That's why you see such crazy statements about it. Bottom line is they went out. They needed some money. We know that. They went out and they got some minority investors. They got money from Stevie Cohen. They got money from a bunch of other people who gave them somewhere around $20 million stakes. Bill Maher and a couple others, okay? They also bought some of those themselves with family money. So they actually bought some of the shares themselves. So it's a very odd way they've gone about this. Plus, you got to commingle what they do as far as the SNY into this, which is a extremely lucrative business, okay, and which is hand in hand now with the baseball business. And for any team, it's home TV rights and home TV network, and owning its own network is the right way to go. That is the smartest way to do this. So you have to take all that, absolutely all that into account without any question. So it does not make it an easy thing to figure out what's going on. As I said, I'm watching Pebble here, and they are tearing it up. And if you're going to sit home and watch some golf on Saturday and you like to see the beauty of Pebble Beach as winter hits our part of the country, although it hasn't been a bad winter, you're going to have a decorated leaderboard here with Taylor leading, Mickelson, Day, Dustin Johnson, Cantlay, all of them right there at the top of the leaderboard for the weekend. Lefty playing very well. Taylor sizzled through 2 rounds, 66, following up a 63 with a 66. Okay, I mean, so they are just taking it apart right now. I mean, everybody, you haven't seen anybody who isn't on the par. Everybody's on the par. And everybody, if you're in this, you got to be 9 or 10 on the par to be in the mix right now as they reach the halfway point. Because the leaderboard is Taylor at 14 under, Mickelson 12, Day 12, DJ and Cantlay 9. Cantlay still has a couple of holes left, so he might pick up a shot or so. So, but he's right there in the mix, as is DJ. Day, I see here now, has lost a couple of strokes. He's now 8 under, but he just put it in. That's either a birdie or an eagle. I'm not sure which, because he put it in from off the green. So I don't know. He's smiling, so that puts him, I don't know where now, after knocking that in. I gotta wait. It was either a birdie or an eagle, one or the other. I don't know which one. So either way, it was not bad. Here's Reevy, who is 6 under par right now. So these guys are knocking shots in from everywhere, from off the green, from absolutely everywhere. They're just knocking it down everywhere you look. They're putting the ball in the hole from everywhere. So it's that kind of day at Pebble as you see that beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful place to go. If you like golf, you should get there once in your life. It's not around the corner, and it's not a cheap trip. But it is a breathtaking place. And if you get it when the wind blows, it is an absolute bear. If you get it when the wind doesn't blow, it's not that tough a course. You can play it. You really can. But when the wind blows, it is just, I mean, it is impossible. The same course is 30 strokes harder. The same place is 30 strokes harder with the wind. I mean, that's how bad it is. I mean, the wind just is. One day you can use a wedge, the next day you're using a 3-wood from the same hole. I mean, that's how bad. I'm not kidding. That's how bad the wind is there. It just is, blows 40, 50 miles an hour. It whips through that place like crazy. And it can be so cold there. I mean, they always got jackets on. Always. I mean, I went there in June and had a jacket on. I went there in June and went out in the morning to get breakfast. And it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. It was beautiful sun coming through the window. Went outside. It was like it was December. It was so cold. It was unbelievable. It was like 48 degrees, and the wind was whipping. The wind chill was down in the 30s. And this was just a normal day there. So they get some crazy, crazy weather, but it is just a incredibly beautiful, beautiful place. I see Charles Schwartzel's is now making a run. He's 10 under par. So he's in the mix this weekend too. Very solid player. So doing a very good job there too. So a lot of guys doing very well there, as a matter of fact. Cleaning up. So that's basically it. Take a quick break. Be right back. As we begin the program, let me tell you first, thank you for last night, because at the end of the program, or during the end of the program, I had Marty Lyons on, and he tried to hit you folks up for some money, and they sent me a message later on to say that the money was pouring in. So that was very nice. I appreciate it. The audience is always very charitable, and for anybody who can help the kids, it's basically Marty's version of Make-A-Wish, where you have the sick kids who are looking to have that moment, that one wish that they want to have. He has 80 kids lined up that he needs to fund. That's $500,000 it'll take. $5,700 per trip is what the normal, the average cost is. So anything you can give, MartyLyons.org, MartyLyonsFoundation.org, MartyLyonsFoundation.org. There is a fundraiser tomorrow night that you can find out about also at the website, MartyLyonsFoundation.org. And I thank anybody who made a donation when we asked you last night to get involved. So I thank you again for your generosity, which is always overwhelming. We knew 2 days ago the deal was dead. Now you hear the spin from both sides as they grumble about whose fault it was. They should just be quiet. Both sides should just be quiet, because you're going to now have reports which are leaked from both sides. So you have 3 people leaking here. You have Stevie Cohen leaking through his Wall Street people. You have, and through the financial reporters. You have the Mets leaking through the baseball reporters. And then you have baseball leaking through the commissioner's office. And baseball is going to protect the current owners more than protect the 8% owner, number one. Number two, you have them saying, well, Stevie Cohen thought that he was going to take over, didn't realize he wasn't going to take over. So you're going to tell me this. Here's a man who's worth $13 billion, who stood Wall Street on his ear, who fought with the SEC for years, wind up having to pay them billions of dollars in fines, has gone through more lawyers than you could if you lived 18 lifetimes. The Wilpons, on the other hand, made their original fortune in commercial real estate, where it's all about contracts, and you're going to tell me that neither side had it spelled out who was going to be in charge when his stake went from 8 to 80%? I mean, come on. Why even bother to give us this garbage? You're going to tell me that you guys had lawyers in a room, and it was not spelled out in the first paragraph who was going to be in charge of the franchise once he plucked down the other 72% of what the franchise was going to cost. He owned 8%. He was going to 80%. The franchise was valued at $3.6 billion. Do the math. And you're going to tell me he didn't realize he wasn't gaining control immediately? That wasn't spelled out in the contract? Wait, I'll send you one of my real estate lawyers, okay? Because I can tell you right now, I'll get you one off the beach in Long Beach, okay? He can do the contract on the back of a napkin for you better than that. You're going to try and tell us that it was not spelled out whether Jeff was in charge or Stevie Cohen's people were in charge for 5 years? I mean, come on. We know one of two things happened here. Either Cohen balked at the price or the Wilpons balked at control. One or the other. I doubt honestly that Cohen balked at the price of anything. I think he likes to spend his money. This is a guy who likes to buy expensive things. So I think he gets off buying expensive things. So I doubt it was that. I think it was exactly when he was going to be completely calling the shots. Hey, it was there in the contract. The question was, who was interpreting what was there? So, or maybe the Wilpons said, wait a second, we'd like to stay in to here. Is that okay? And the answer was, no, it's not okay. Or maybe they already had a dispute over a player. Anything is possible. But the idea that neither one knew exactly when the other was taking control is not possible. Otherwise, you need a whole bunch of new lawyers. And I doubt that's the case. So the question was, hey, am I in charge now or not? And, hey, I agreed to this, but I wanted him to be a figurehead. I didn't want him to actually be in charge. So maybe there was a little unsettled ground there, but not that no one knew exactly when the other was taking over. I'm not buying that, even for a second. But it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter. What you have now is this. You have spring training around the corner. You have a team that, if everything falls into place, remember, you have a new manager. You have a new coaching staff. You have a manager who wasn't put together with this coaching staff. You have maybe the makings of a bullpen, especially if Betances can be Betances. Because he at least gives you a place to go if you are wrong about your first premise on the bullpen. So there are a lot of ifs. Chemistry's an if because of what you're going to ask out of some of the older players. You got guys who are going to try and repeat sensational performances. See, you got to that many wins last year because you had some sensational performances. You had an all-time performance from Alonso. You had another great performance from DeGrom. You had a wonderful year out of a couple other guys, really step-up years. And they all have to duplicate that, and you have to be better in other areas where Syndergaard's got to be better. And from the start of the season, Cano's got to be better. And the bullpen has to be 1,000 times better. And with this team, it's all about the bullpen and the use of the bullpen. Because you're going to be in a lot of close games, and you're going to have the lead in plenty of games because you have some premier pitching. The question is, can you close those games out and not lose them at an incredible rate like you did last year? If they could have figured out a way to put up zeros in the final 3 innings of games last year, the Mets could have won 100 games. As it was, they won a lot of games in September when nobody cares. That made their season. And those games are always, always suspicious. You cannot. I don't look at them. You know, the old adage is don't look at anything you see in April and September. And if you don't look at what you see in April and September, you're not going to like what you saw from this Met team last year. But it has a chance to be a decent team. It's got some talent. It's got pitching. It's got power. And it's got pieces if they can put them all together. So you forget about the ownership stuff, all right? Santa Claus isn't arriving this year. If you're going to think you're going to outbid everybody in baseball for a bunch of players, you know what? That guy's not arriving. Now he's not arriving at all. And the idea you're brokenhearted because Stevie Cohen said he was going to get to the World Series in 5 years. Well, tell me this. What guy buys a baseball team and doesn't expect to get to the World Series in the next 5 years? Only somebody who bought the Marlins. Because the design there wasn't to get good. The design there was to make more money with your investment. That's what the design is there. That's about franchise appreciation, nothing more. But remember, of course you expect to be. Wouldn't the Mets right now with Wilpon expect to be in the World Series in the next 5 years? They've been in the World Series in the last 5 years. And you listen to some of these fans with the Mets, and you would think that they had the worst franchise in baseball history. It's not so. They're spotty on the field. They're not terrible on the field. They're just dysfunctional in every way possible. They never can do anything clean, but their performance hasn't been terrible as a franchise. It's been spotty. It's been mediocre. It's been a little better than mediocre when you think about it. Been in the World Series a lot. It's been a lot less years for them to go to the World Series than it has been for the Yankees. I understand they didn't win one. I understand that. Well, they went to the playoffs back-to-back years, and they went to the World Series. So it's not like you're taking them somewhere where they haven't been. It's not like you're talking about the Knicks here. When you're talking about the Knicks and you're talking about an NBA Finals, that sounds like a pipe dream right now because you haven't been anywhere except to the 50 to 60 losses in recent memory. See, here's the deal. When you look at, and everyone now likes to frame everything, and they've left the Jets out of this, but they've framed everything Wilpon, Dolan, and if you're going to do that, you have to realize that what you're looking at is Dolan with the Knicks, and you can't bring the Rangers into it, but Dolan with the Knicks has been incredibly bad on the field in the standings. But as far as financially, the franchise has been incredibly solvent. They make money. The franchise is worth a fortune. His ability to make money has never been in dispute. I mean, his stock has gone from $100 to $300 in the last couple of years. And it's worth more than that. Closed today around $293, and it's worth more than that. The Mets have had some success on the field, but they have been a nightmare off the field. For a variety of reasons. Including some of the habits that they basically got into as private businessmen who would take from pocket A and put in pocket B and share from pocket B and commingle money and do different things that were not things that people like to see done. So their finances were messy and not always efficient. They had some success on the field and inefficiency off the field. The Knicks had no efficiency on the court, but very efficient in terms of their finances. As a fan, you don't care about their finances unless it impacts who you get and how you get them. That's the only thing you care about. But it has to do with performance. All you want is performance. This idea, and I hear these people, opine about, you have to come in and you have to cultivate the fan base. And these are out-of-towners. You got to cultivate the fan base. No, you don't. No, you don't. And you have to play the media this way. No, you don't. You don't have to be transparent. You don't have to be friendly. You don't have to be nice. You just have to put a winning product on the field, on the court, on the ice, and look like you know what you're doing and get the job done. All you have to do is win. You think Pat Riley was transparent? You think Bill Parcells was fan-friendly? You think Bill Belichick gives a damn what anybody thinks? All they do is win. All you have to do in professional sports in any city in this country is win. Everything will take care of it. Everything else will take care of itself. Every single thing. This is pro sports. It's about winning. Back after this. Lighting it up right now, 63-66. The story, though, is Phil Mickelson, who is 12 under par, who was on fire today, played brilliantly, and Lefty has a habit of playing really well there, as you know, historically. Played, even in later years, he has played very well there at Pebble Beach, right there. A lot of the guys didn't play this weekend, but the guys who are there are right there. You have Charles Schwartzel's there, Day's 12 under, Mickelson's 12 under, Dustin Johnson and Cantley are right there. They're the two ranked players there. They're both in the top 10 in the world. They're right there. Right there also. So they're all within about 5 strokes of the lead. Taylor's got the lead. He's only won one tournament in his life. That was back in 2014, so he's got a lot to do to win. Cantley is, I guess he's 10 under. He's playing 18 now. I guess got a birdie try on 18. He's 9 under, and he's got 1 hole left at Monterey, playing the second round. So he's in the mix. And obviously, so is Lefty, so is Day, so is DJ. So that's coming up this weekend. Not my favorite tournament from watching the amateurs. I don't like watching the amateurs, but it looks like you're going to have a good leaderboard this weekend. If you want to watch a little golf, you got the Academy Awards this weekend, early, and no host again this year. So last year was the first year in 5 years that the ratings didn't go down. So they felt, hey, you know what? We'll try again what we did last year. So no host again this year, just presenters. So, you know, I liked it a little better back in the old days when you had somebody. And I even thought Billy Crystal was really good at it. Johnny Carson was great at it in the old days. Even before that, you go back to when Bob Hope used to MC it. That's when the Oscars were the Oscars. But the only one I would say, I'd be surprised if Phoenix doesn't win it for the Joker, Best Actor. And I would say I'd be shocked if Pesci didn't win Best Supporting Actor for The Irishman. I don't know what movie will win Best Movie. I didn't see all of them, so I can't say. There's a bunch on there I didn't see. I don't think The Irishman will win for Best Movie. I don't think it was that good. I don't think it was that kind of movie. So I don't think it'll win. I do think Pesci will win, though. He's over Pacino in the supporting. De Niro's in the Best Actor. I don't think he'll win. A lot of people think Brad Pitt's going to win an Academy Award. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So if you have that, and you have Homeland, which I am a big fan of, and I know it hasn't been as good, and you've waited forever for this last year, but this is the final year of Homeland, the 8th and final season of Homeland, which starts at 9 o'clock this coming Sunday night. And I've always been a Homeland person. I like that show a lot. Had some great years if you go back. I mean, just the first 3 or 4 years of that show were just utterly, even the middle years was sensational. Really was. Just a great show. So that's where we are, and we're already into the second week in February. Pitches and catches are right around the corner. The baseball season starts very early, as you know. So even spring training games get underway, I believe, the 22nd or the 23rd of February. So that's only 2 weeks away. So it's not that far. It really isn't. And you're going to have all this free agency in football, and it's going to be a couple of weeks, because think about it. We don't know at this moment next year whether Breeze will play or retire, whether Rivers, well, he won't be with the Chargers, where Rivers will find a home. Will it be Indianapolis? Will it be Tampa? Will it be somewhere else? Will Tom Brady go back to New England? Will he go to the Chargers? Will he go to the Titans? Sounds like he's going to play again. We know that. But when you have these kind of quarterbacks, and think about how many years, a generation, you knew there were quarterbacks who were going to be in the same place every year. You know, you had Peyton, you had Eli, you had Roethlisberger, you had Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Rivers, and now, you know, a lot of those guys, you know, Peyton's gone, Eli's gone, Rivers is gone from the Chargers, Roethlisberger's going to try and make a comeback, Brady, Breeze could be on either different teams. I don't think Breeze goes to a different team. Either Breeze retires, which sounds like has become more and more a possibility because it sounds like he doesn't want to fight for his job. He wants to be guaranteed it's his job for one more year. And it sounds like that Sean Payton has other ideas. So maybe Breeze sees that as, you know what, I'm not doing that. I don't see him going somewhere else. I think he would retire. So you have that the next couple of weeks, and you have all the Tom Brady stuff, which will happen, I would think, fairly quickly once free agency begins. I don't think it'll be that far away. So it'll be a very interesting free agency period, as it always is, but this year, extremely telling, especially when you think about one of the biggest players in the history of the sport, and Tom Brady, and some of these other guys who we don't know what their fate is as we get ready to start another campaign. So it'll be an interesting time, clearly, for the NFL. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Mike's on, again, brought to you each and every day by Casamigos Tequila, brought to you by those who drink it. We thank them again for their patronage. Have a very nice February weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. Enjoy it. We'll see you then.